Good evening, Demon fans, and welcome back to the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy, and well, the D's were once again their own worst enemy and squandered another opportunity to consolidate a position in the top four. Unfortunately, there will not be a Demonland podcast this week. I'm currently overseas and the internet situation here is terrible. I was able to watch the first 3 quarters of the match with just a few buffering issues where I would have to completely shut down the Watch AFL app and then restart it. And remarkably, the app somehow knew when we were going to kick a goal because it froze on 3 separate occasions as we were just about to kick one. And I only found out that we had scored when the app restarted. Yep, perhaps somebody was trying to tell me something because in the last quarter, the app just kept throwing up error messages and I was only able to follow what was really happening on the AFL app, which was painfully slow to load. But from what I've gathered, reading online since, the last quarter was painfully hard to watch. So perhaps I did dodge a bullet there. But my ability, or lack thereof, to watch the match properly is not the reason there's no podcast tonight. As I said, the internet situation here is terrible. It's not reliable enough for me to connect with my co-hosts, George and B-Man. I have all my equipment here. I was ready to go. I hadn't actually tested it out with them, but given that even browsing Demonland is arduous with pages taking an inordinate amount of time to load, I just think the whole process of trying to record the podcast would be extremely frustrating. And that's not even factoring having to upload the massive data file that's created from the show up to the server. At times I have to switch to data roaming to just be able to simply browse the internet. And I have very limited data that you get per day before the excessive fees kick in, and I certainly don't. That'll just get chewed up by trying to upload the podcast. So I apologise for no podcast this week. I know that many of you would have been interested to perhaps hear Bim-Man's explanation for the loss, or perhaps needed to hear some positive vibes from positive binners from this devastating loss. And here is Bim-Man, direct from cold, freezing Melbourne. Take it away, Bim-Man.
Good evening, Demonlanders. Good evening, Andy. Good evening, George, if you're listening, which I doubt you are. Andy, very good time to be in the warm climes of Fiji. Very good choice to be away there and not in the cold Melbourne weather and even colder Alice Spring weather. Well, that was one of the most frustrating losses I can recall. I remain totally gutted. I've talked a lot about winning the war, not the battles, but that was a battle we really needed to win, and we really should have won it. Really disappointing loss, and it makes it that much harder to finish top 4. I'm still super confident that we'll finish top 4. We are in the 4 at the moment, so really disappointing loss. No real excuses, really. Fatigue wasn't the issue, and nor was forward connection or any of our supposed scoring issues. So take both of them off the table. Though on the scoring and the connection, I don't think it helped much having 3 super talls in Brown, Grundy and Gawn in such horrendous conditions. It was awful conditions for football, and losing our best kick for goal 8 minutes into the match for that matter. It didn't help for that matter either. Just on the conditions, the other factor was that I've heard that the ground was super soft and lifting, and so I'm really pleased that we got out of that game with only the 1 injury, and let's hope that Frid is in surgery today, I heard. Hopefully that doesn't knock him out for too long, but foot injuries are a shocker. But it was clearly really hard for the players to get traction, and the ground condition was pretty poor, I have to say. But if you are of a mind that we have connection issues, then yesterday definitely provided a scratch for that itch. As I said, the conditions were appalling, and combined with our game plan of trapping it in our forward half meant super congested forward area, forward zone, and it was all but impossible, obviously, to take contested marks. We only took 5 for the game, and the ball was living on the ground. But that didn't hurt the Giants, I hear you say. Well, our efficiency inside 50 for scores was 36%, 26 shots from our 73 inside 50s. Acceptable in those conditions with the way we play, because, as I said, the ball is always in a crowded, messy forward line, and even more messy and more sloppy when it's wet. The winners, they must have been more efficient, right? Well, the Giants were even less efficient going inside 50 to us, with an efficiency of only 26% of scoring once they went inside 50, so 12 shots from 46. So, our efficiency was better than the winners, and that tells you everything you need to know. So imagine the melt on Demon Land and out there in Joe Public Land if we went at 26% efficiency for scores inside 50. The difference was they kicked 7-5 and we kicked 5-15. That's it. That's the game right there. So we didn't lose because of fatigue or our game plan or structure or setup or connections or issues like that. Sometimes the simplest explanation is too simplistic and misses the mark, but sometimes it doesn't. We lost that game with our woeful kicking for goals. Again, it's happened again. It's really, really, for me, it's as simple as that. We dominated the game and should have won it easily. We smashed them in every key stat that the D's put a premium on. We plus 27 for inside 50s, plus 19 for clearances, including 12 more centre clearances. Usually, when you get nice clean centre clearances, they're good scoring drivers. Plus 42 for contested possession. That's nuts. Plus 42 contested possessions. And thanks to Wheelo, saw a tweet from him on Demonland. Since 2012, teams with more than plus 25 contested possessions, plus more than 15 clearances, and more than plus 40 contested possessions. So more than 25 inside 50s, I should say, and more than 40 contested possessions. In the 10 games since 2012 with teams with that profile, in those 10 games, the team who have scored got those stats have won 10 of those games, lost none. 9 of those wins were 50 points plus. So that's just a sort of context for how much we dominated that game of footy. In addition to those stats, we had 60% of time in forward half through the match. Our pressure was okay, 186 for the match to their 187, so that wasn't an issue. This was a great number for Melbourne, given it hasn't been a strength for us, and it was a criticism that we received last year. We were plus 25 for ground ball gets, which is a really terrific number for us. And we took 2 more marks inside 50 than they did. 20 shots at goal in those conditions is fine, particularly when the opposition could only manage 12. The expected score of 77 to 43 to me tells a tale. A 5-goal win, unexpected score turned into a loss because we missed shots on goal that we simply should make. From just as on the shots on goals in general play, we kicked 2 goals 10, double their number of general shots from general play on goals. That's when it's balls loose, as opposed to a set shot. For only 1 more point, 2 goals 10. So 12 scoring shots from general play. They only had 6 scoring shots from general play, only 6. But the difference was they scored 3 goals 3. So one of which was the brilliant snap by Green, and another the kick that won them the game from outside 50, 60 metres plus, to win the game by Kelly. A brilliant kick. That's a huge difference. Bottom line, we have too many poor kicks in the team, and wet weather exacerbates that. It's a big issue for us. The winning goal by Kelly, as I mentioned, was a perfect example of how good technique stands up under pressure and in terrible conditions. And and I think our game plan doesn't work fantastically in the wet weather again. And I think, as I mentioned before, our ball handling skills are a worry too, again exacerbated by the weather, and even track fumbles way too often, I think. But on the weather, it's worth noting in the 6 games since we demolished the Hawks, which is the period all the pundits are highlighting as us having these scoring issues, supposed scoring issues, 3 have been played in really, really wet, crappy conditions. The Port game, the Cats game, and the Giants game are miserable conditions in all 3 games. Heavy rain, intermittent, heavy ground, slippery conditions, raining through the day. And the Blues game in that stretch was a night game, and it was really dewy and slippery. So So 4 of the 6 games in that period that people have been talking about our connection issues, and in the period that we've struggled with our, with winning, obviously. 4 of the 6 games have been in conditions that don't suit our game plan, and more the point, exacerbate our really poor general foot skills and ball handling skills. All of which is really frustrating because in wet conditions, our focus on forward half footy, dominating inside 50s, multiple re-entry inevitably leads to a super congested forward line that's extremely hard to get any time and space in. So forget leading lanes, there's no leading lanes to lead into. And in wet conditions, that forward 50 zone just becomes a complete and utter mess. So you can see often they have space in their forward 50 because they didn't get anywhere near the number of forward 50 entries as we did, because they weren't getting re-entries. So when they went in, but keeping in mind they only were at 26% efficiency, they just scored more goals. Our lack of one-touch players doesn't help either. Watching Port play in the wet, Butters is just so beautiful when the ball hits the deck, and we don't have many players like that. Although big shout out to McVie and Salo, but McVie in particular, his class really stands out, and part of that is he's a real one-touch player. But I'd say our game plan is built to win finals, and it just doesn't work as well in home and away games in variable conditions and or when fatigue is an issue, and particularly when it's wet. But hang tough, Demonlanders. We're about winning flags, and whilst it's super frustrating to have lost that game, super frustrating, still getting my head around it, we're heading in the right direction. It may not feel like that after that loss, but we definitely are. And it's a great thing that we don't have to wait as long for our next game. So let's all get to Marvel on Friday night, support our players who, although they lost, could not be faulted at all for their endeavour, their effort. They really cracked in. You can't knock players if they're not skilled, they're not skilled. So you can't knock them when their endeavour and their fight and their attack was as good as it was in this match. And those players need every D's fan who can get there to do so. It's a Saints home game. Let's all get there, fly the flag, support them. Let's get a win this week, and next week's podcast we can put this Giants game in the dustbin of history, and we can focus on our terrific win over the Saints. Go Redlegs!
And that was Bin Man. Well, you probably won't get any positives from me. We've been in the top 4 for most of this season. We've now lost 4 out of our last 6 matches, and still, remarkably, we are clinging onto that top 4 spots. We've had, a lot of results go our way. And but now we have teams like the Saints and the Bulldogs. They're nipping at our heels when we could have firmly consolidated a spot in that top 4 over the last few weeks. And if we didn't have that favourable draw heading into the run home, I would probably start questioning our top 8 credentials. Now, my MFCSS won't even let me take solace that the losses that we've occurred recently, those losses of 2 points, 4 points, 7 and 15, mean that we've still must be doing something right, but we're just not able to find that connection to get those wins. And yes, our accuracy has been costly. We win all of those games if we kick accurately, but bad kicking is bad football, and we've just been wasteful. It's not even that we've just been wasteful in front of goals. Our skills and our connection inside 50 is horrific. Our disposal by hand and foot is sloppy. In this match alone, we had plus 70 possessions, plus 42 contested possessions, 27 more inside 50s, 19 more clearances, 15 more free kicks, 8 more scoring shots, or was it? 8 more scoring shots. And according to Andrew Whelan, our mate from Wheelo Ratings, since 2012, teams that have had plus 25 inside 50s, plus 15 clearances, and plus 40 contested possessions have won 10 matches and have lost 0. 9 of those wins were by over 50 points. We lost this match by 2 points, and it's just pathetic. But I guess that's enough from me. We'll be back next week, hopefully discussing a win over the Saints and Marvel. At the very least, we can't blame the conditions there for a poor performance if we lose. And knowing our luck, the roof will probably get stuck open during the week and we'll have to play in horrendous torrential conditions. And my apologies again for no podcast this week. I've travelled overseas or interstate every year since we've been doing this podcast, and I've never had an issue with internet like I've got at the moment. But I guess that's a first world problem. And, well, I think we'll leave it there for tonight. We'll be back next week on Monday night at 8:30 p.m. If you want to listen to the show live, then please join us at demonland.com on Monday night at 8:30 p.m. Don't forget to leave us that 5-star review and a comment on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll read it out on the next week's show. See you next week. Go Demons.
Go Red Leggers.
This feeling, I know it's real, it's got a hold on me. I've got this feeling, I know it's real, and we're gonna make history. We've got the team, yeah, football machine to take us to the top. We've got the fire with the desire to win that premiership cup.